Ngozi froze in shock as she entered Nneka's room. She was unable to move from where she stood and she was very scared. She wondered if the little girl on the ceiling was her daughter or someone else. Nneka, her daughter, was crawling upside down on the ceiling of her room like a spider. She had sharp long fingernails and toenails. Her hair was so long and white and her teeth were sharp like that of a vampire, with her tongue rapidly moving like that of a snake and her eyes were bloodshot red. "Who are you? And what have you done with my daughter?" Ngozi asked Nneka after summoning all the courage she could find. Her voice was trembling and shaky, making it obvious that she was very scared. Nneka remained quiet. She didn't answer her mother. Instead, she started crawling slowly towards her mother, Ngozi. Ngozi quickly ran out of the room in fear, screaming for help like someone who had just seen a ghost. Her husband, Mr. Uche, was in the living room watching the late night news when he heard his wife calling out for help. He quickly stood up and ran towards the direction where her voice was coming from. They both ran into each other and Ngozi was breathing very hard. "She's coming. She wants to kill me. Help me. Save me," Ngozi said while still trying to catch her breath. Mr. Uche became very confused. The last thing he remembered was that Ngozi wanted to check on their daughter Nneka before she went to bed. So he asked her, "Who is coming? Who wants to kill you?" Ngozi ran and hid behind him, pointing towards the door of their daughter's room, shaking and trembling behind her husband. She was unable to say anything. Mr. Uche felt a dangerous animal was in their daughter's room, so he ran into the kitchen and brought out a cutlass. Then together, they slowly walked to their daughter's room. But to Ngozi's greatest surprise, Nneka was lying down on the bed, sleeping peacefully. Her hair color was back to normal, as well as her fingernails. Ngozi became very confused. She was very sure of what she saw earlier, so she started feeling like she was running mad. Mr. Uche walked around the room to find out what his wife was afraid of, but he found nothing. He simply hissed and rebuked his wife for disturbing his evening news. Then he went back to the living room to continue what he was doing before. Ngozi stood inside the room for a few minutes staring at her daughter Nneka as she was sleeping. But she was very confused because she was very sure of what she saw some minutes ago. After waiting for some time, she left the room and locked the door. As she walked back to the living room, she started to remember all the things that the maids she had employed in the past had told her before they resigned from the job, despite how huge the salary was. What if they were telling the truth about Nneka being a demon? What if they were not lying? Ngozi asked herself as she went to the living room to join her husband. Uche and Ngozi met and fell in love with each other many years ago and got married. However, when they got married, Uche was still a struggling young man who owned a carpentry shop, while his wife Ngozi was a nursing student who worked part-time at a pharmacy. They didn't have a lot of money, but they were very happy with each other. Some years after they got married, they were blessed with a very beautiful daughter who they named Nneka. Nneka grew up to be so adorable and beautiful that all their neighbors loved and admired her. Whenever people saw her, they would often give her gifts, presents and money. When Ngozi realized that a lot of people admired and adored her daughter, she started using Nneka as a way to get things from people. Whenever she needed something from the neighbors, she would send Nneka to go and get it because she knew they wouldn't refuse if they saw Nneka. Ngozi also had a very bad habit of asking people for things. Whenever she visited any of her friends or neighbors with Nneka and she set her eyes on something that she likes, she would tell them, "Wow, I love your bag. Please give it to me so I can wear it to church on Sunday. Wow, this your dress is really nice. Please lend it to me so I can wear it to my friend's birthday party." Nneka would often see her mother doing this, but Ngozi didn't know that her daughter was learning from her examples. Some years later, Uche was very fortunate to get a contract from an Italian furniture company. They saw the furniture he made and loved them, so they offered him a contract worth millions of naira. Uche and Ngozi became rich in a twinkle of an eye. Uche built a very big showroom for his furniture as he continued getting international clients, and he also built a big pharmacy for his wife Ngozi because of how she stayed with him and endured with him during his little beginning. They started living fine and large, and Nneka also started going to a very prestigious school called Queen's, which was meant for the wealthy. However, Nneka had gotten used to seeing her mother beg people for things, and it has also become a habit for her, despite the fact that her parents had more than enough money to buy her whatever she wanted. Whenever Nneka goes to school, she would start begging her fellow students to give her snacks and chocolates. After her parents became wealthy, they stopped having enough time for her and always employed a maid to always help out with the chores and other duties around the house because they were hardly at home during the day. Nneka had a best friend in school called Chioma. They became friends the first day she started going to the school because they were sitting beside each other in class. Unlike Nneka, Chioma's parents weren't rich. Her father was a petty trader and her mother was a teacher in a government school. However, Chioma was very brilliant and intelligent, so she was awarded a scholarship to study at Queen's College. Chioma's parents brought her up and trained her in a very good way. Whenever she went out and returned with gifts or anything that didn't belong to her, they would caution her and warn her to return it to the owner. They taught her to be content with what she had and eliminate greed from her thoughts. So whenever Nneka came to school with snacks and biscuits, each time she offered them to Chioma, Chioma would politely refuse and thank her. This bothered Nneka a lot because she didn't understand why Chioma was reluctant to accept anything from her, despite the fact that they were close friends. But unlike Chioma, after Nneka had finished eating all the snacks she brought to school, she would still go around the school begging other children for their own snacks. Chioma would often advise her against her actions, but Nneka didn't see anything wrong in what she was doing. Why do you always beg other children for snacks, even when you always come to school with yours? Why aren't you content with what you are given? Chioma would often ask Nneka. Nneka would always tell Chioma that there is nothing wrong in asking people for things or accepting things from people. After all, she wasn't forcing them to give it to her. They were giving it to her because they are good and very nice people. One fateful day, a new student was admitted into Queen's College. Her name was Chisom. Chisom was a senior student and all the other students respected her. However, Chisom didn't come to Queen's College just to study. She came with a hidden agenda. Chisom lived with her evil stepmother, who belonged to an evil coven. One of the major things they did in their coven was to initiate young children and collect their stars and destiny. Chisom had been a very great and useful instrument for her stepmother when it comes to bringing young children into the coven. For every child she brought to the coven, her stepmother often rewarded her greatly. Chisom was very jovial, and just in 1 week of joining Queen's College, she was already friends with most of the other children. She was also nicknamed Robin Hood because she was a very generous giver. She was fond of giving snacks, biscuits, cakes, and chocolate to the other children in their classroom, even when they didn't ask her for it. Chioma found it very strange that Chisom was very benevolent. She felt it was very unusual, so she avoided her completely. Chioma also tried to warn Nneka as well, but Nneka was a glutton who is never satisfied and didn't listen to Chioma's warning. Chisom observed that Chioma was different from the other children in the school. Chisom also admired Chioma's intelligence and dedication and often wondered why Chioma never collected anything from others, no matter how hungry she appears to be. She had greatly observed Chioma and noticed that Chioma was a very bright and special child. When Chisom told her stepmother about Chioma and how different she was, her stepmother looked deep into Chioma's destiny and found out that Chioma had a very bright star and a great destiny. She told Chisom, "I want you to do whatever it takes to make that girl eat something from you willingly. If you can do this, I will take you to the market and buy you whatever you want, as well as your favorite snacks." Chisom was very happy and decided that she would do whatever she could to make Chioma trust her and also become her very close friend. However, Chisom was very disappointed because she found it very difficult to win Chioma's heart. Unlike the other children in the college, Chioma found it very difficult to be comfortable in Chisom's presence. One day, Chisom found out that the next day would be Chioma's birthday, so she decided to use that as an opportunity to get close to Chioma. She informed her stepmother, and they did some incantations to know some personal things about Chioma. They discovered her favorite chocolates, so Chisom bought a pack of Chioma's favorite chocolates and offered it to her when she was seated alone in the class during break. She brought out the chocolate from her backpack and gave it to Chioma. Chioma was very surprised and shocked at the same time. It was her favorite chocolate and it was also very expensive, so her parents only bought it for her once in a while. However, she was even more surprised that Chisom knew about her favorite chocolate, but she dismissed the thought and assumed it to be a coincidence. I like you, Chioma, and I would love to be your friend. Please, take this chocolate as your birthday gift from me to you. Happy birthday. Chioma thanked Chisom for being so thoughtful and benevolent towards her. She didn't want to collect the chocolate, so she politely declined. But Chisom insisted that Chioma should have it. So Chioma collected the chocolate and kept it on the table. Chisom looked at her anxiously in anticipation that Chioma would eat the chocolate right away, but was disappointed when Chioma continued reading her book instead. She told Chioma that they would see later and left the class, still hoping that Chioma would eat the chocolate. Chioma had no intention of eating it. She wanted to take it home and show it to her parents first. Immediately after Chisom left, Nneka entered the class. She told Chioma that one of the teachers needed her presence, so Chioma quickly left to see the teacher. However, when Chioma returned from the teacher's office, she met Nneka eating the chocolate already. Chioma was very disappointed in Nneka. She told Nneka that that was a birthday gift from Chisom and she wanted to show it to her parents at home before opening it. Nneka simply laughed and told her, "What is the need of showing your parents when they will eventually ask you to eat it anyways?" Chisom's stepmother was at home watching Nneka through an evil mirror. She watched as Nneka ate the cursed chocolate which was specially prepared for Chioma. Her stepmother became very angry at Nneka for spoiling their plans and decided to punish her by making her transform into a dangerous animal every night after collecting her star and initiating her into the coven. Ever since that day, Nneka would often have nightmares where she would find herself in the forest, seated amongst other girls her age wearing red gowns. Whenever she woke up, she would be soaked in sweat. Each time she tried to talk to her parents about her experience in the dream, they would ask her to wait until they returned from work, and when they returned, they would tell Nneka that they were exhausted and ask her to wait till the next day. Nneka felt it would stop at the dreams, but some weeks later, things got worse and beyond her control. One midnight, the housemaid heard some noises coming out of Nneka's room. She became suspicious and felt someone had broken in because Nneka was a deep sleeper and does not usually wake up until the next morning whenever she falls asleep. The housemaid tiptoed gradually to the entrance of Nneka's room and placed her ear to the door, trying to listen to whatever was inside the room. She started hearing voices of little children, cries of newborn babies, and laughter of elderly men and women. She was shocked because the voices were strange. She gently opened the door of the room and entered inside. That was when she saw a sight that traumatized her deeply. She saw a wild animal with many heads, hands, legs, and a tail. The heads of the animal were that of many children as well as Nneka's head also. It was as if a dozen young children were merged into a single body. The housemaid was very terrified. She froze where she stood, unable to process what her eyes were seeing. It was a horrifying sight. Suddenly, she realized she had no control over her hands and legs. She tried to scream, but she had no voice. The wild, dangerous animal slowly walked towards her, using its tail to tangle the housemaid's neck, trying to strangle her to death slowly. She remained motionless, unable to move an inch and gasping for air, struggling to breathe as the tail of the creature squeezed her neck. Suddenly, Nneka heard her mother's voice calling the housemaid. She quickly let go of the housemaid's neck and gave her control of her hands and legs once again. The housemaid quickly ran out of the room as fast as her legs could carry her. She ran past Nneka's mother and ran out of the house. Nneka's mother went after her. "What is wrong with you? Why are you running? Where have you been since I was calling you?" The housemaid couldn't say a word. She was breathing very fast and fear was written all over her face. In between deep breaths, she answered, "Your daughter is a witch. Your daughter is a demon. She just tried to strangle me to death. I can't work for you anymore. I love my life more than your blood money." Ngozi couldn't believe her ears. She felt that the housemaid was hallucinating. She told her, "How dare you call my daughter a demon? Are you insane? Are you mad?" Pack your things and leave my house and never return to this place." The housemaid walked away without minding the fact that it was midnight. She left all her bags and things behind without taking them because she was very scared to go back into the house. Ngozi looked at the housemaid closely and saw some marks on her neck. But she didn't read meaning into it because she was angry at her for what she said. Ngozi went to her daughter's room to check up on her and found Nneka sleeping peacefully on the bed. The next day, Ngozi employed another housemaid to take care of the house. However, 1 week later, she told Ngozi that she wanted to resign from the job. Ngozi was shocked. She asked the new housemaid why she wanted to resign. "Did I do anything wrong? Is the job too hard for you? Is it about the salary? I would increase it and start paying you double of what we initially agreed." But the housemaid insisted that she could not work anymore or stay in the house. She told Ngozi, "I've been working here for only a week, but the evil forces in your house is too strong for me to endure. If I don't quit, I might lose my life." "What do you mean?" Ngozi asked the new housemaid. The new housemaid took a deep breath and looked at the curiosity in Ngozi's eyes. She wasn't sure to tell Ngozi the truth or keep it to herself, but she decided to tell Ngozi since she would be resigning. "The truth is, your daughter, Nneka, is a demon. She's possessed by a very dangerous evil spirit and she's a part of an evil coven. She wants to take my life. That's why I want to quit." Ngozi became very furious at the words of the new housemaid. She recalled what the first housemaid said, and that even got her more furious. As they were discussing, Nneka entered the living room and greeted the both of them with respect. Then she told her mother that she wanted to go and visit a friend, and got her mother's permission before she left. Ngozi turned to the new housemaid after Nneka left and said, "You can resign if you want to, but don't ever call my innocent and respectful daughter a demon ever again in your life. Don't let her innocent look deceive you, ma. There is a demon inside of her. I'm sure she already knows. I would advise you to seek help now before it gets too late." After she said this, she left Ngozi's house. While she was leaving, Ngozi noticed a very fresh scar on the corner of her neck. She instantly remembered the marks she saw on the first housemaid, but she foolishly refused to see the connection. She employed other housemaids, but each one she employed resigned in less than a week. Ngozi decided that she wouldn't employ anyone anymore since Nneka was already old enough to look after herself. Meanwhile, Chisom and her stepmother continued trying to initiate Chioma into their cults, but all their efforts were useless. Chioma's parents brought her up properly and taught her the ways of God, so Chioma was very prayerful and also very vigilant. This made it difficult for Chisom and her stepmother to initiate her like they did to the other girls. As time went on, Chioma could tell that something was wrong with Nneka. Nneka started losing weight. She was hardly jovial and was always by herself. One fateful day, Chioma decided to ask Nneka what the matter was. "Nneka, what is wrong with you? I can tell that something is bothering you. My spirit does not lie to me." Nneka didn't know what to say. She was scared to open up to Chisom. The leader of their coven warned her to never disclose her membership to anyone, or else she would die. So she was very scared to let anyone know about her predicament, not even her own parents. "I'm fine, Chioma. Trust me, I'm just very worried about my education. But don't worry, I'm reading and studying very hard these days. I will be fine." Chioma looked at Nneka carefully. Something inside her told her that Nneka was lying and pretending to be fine. But there was nothing she could do to help Nneka, except Nneka opens up to her. So Chioma decided to start praying for Nneka and putting her always in her prayers. Chisom, on the other hand, became very angry at Chioma and hated her with passion because she was unable to convince her to eat anything from her. She started telling the other children to stay away from Chioma, and they all did as Chisom asked because they had been initiated into the coven, and also because Chisom often gave them snacks and treats all the time. Chisom did this to make Chioma feel hot, but Chioma wasn't bothered. She was very okay being on her own and reading her books, so the fact that other children kept their distance from her made no difference to her. However, Chioma noticed that something was wrong when Nneka also stopped talking to her, just like some of the other children in school. One night, she decided to pray seriously for Nneka
because she felt that Nneka was in trouble. After praying that night, she had a very terrible dream when she slept. In the dream, she saw herself in front of a very big and beautiful mansion. In the front of the mansion, there were a lot of candies and snacks arranged perfectly and enticingly along the path which led into the very big and beautiful mansion. Chioma followed the path and entered the mansion. When she got there, the inside was very beautiful and decorated with many flowers and many chocolates littered on the ground. As she was admiring the flowers, she started hearing the cries of many children coming from a particular room inside the mansion. She followed the cries and got to the entrance of the room. When she opened the door, she saw many children inside the room. Most of them were kids she knew from Queen's College, including Nneka. They were all tied with a rope and were unable to move or break free. Chioma became scared and worried. She entered the room and tried to help the children by untying the rope which was used to tie them. As she was trying to untie the rope, she noticed some people were behind her. When she turned around to look at who they were, she saw Chisom and her stepmother. They suddenly rushed towards her and tried to tie her too. Then she woke up from the dream. Chioma became very scared and terrified. She quickly understood what the dream meant. It meant that Nneka and many other children were being held captive by Chisom and her stepmother in the spirit world. She started praying and thanking God for giving her the virtue of being content with what she has. Then she started praying again for God to help Nneka and the other children. This same night was the night that Ngozi entered her daughter's room and saw her crawling on the ceiling. But when she called on her husband to come, she found Nneka sleeping peacefully on the bed. Ngozi couldn't sleep that night either. She couldn't forget what she saw previously that night. She was so sure that she wasn't hallucinating or going insane. While she laid on her bed, she recollected the conversations she had with all the housemates she had employed in the past. How they all told her that Nneka was a demon and that she was possessed. She recalled the scars she saw on the parts of their bodies when they resigned, and it made her even more nervous. Could it be right? Could it be true that my only daughter is a demon? Ngozi asked, filled with anxiety. The next morning, immediately after Nneka left for school, Ngozi went into her room and started searching all her belongings for a clue that would convince her that truly Nneka was possessed. After searching and searching, she was unable to find anything unusual. But as soon as she was about to leave Nneka's room, she decided to plant a secret camera. When it was night, Ngozi was unable to sleep. Her husband had traveled for a business meeting and it was only she and her daughter at home. Ngozi sat in her room and focused all her attention on the computer screen, which showed her what was happening in her daughter's room. Everything was calm and normal at first, until it was midnight. Ngozi watched in horror and shock as Nneka stood up from her bed and transformed into a very deadly wild animal with many hands, heads, legs, and a tail. She wanted to scream in fear, but held her mouth with her hands. Immediately, Ngozi rushed to her bag and searched for the card of the maid that offered to assist her. She dialed her number, and the maid picked up almost immediately. Ngozi couldn't control herself. She started stammering. Please, I believe you. Please, come, help me. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You're just lucky, the maid replied. I am at my church for a program and we are yet to resume. I would come with my pastor to your house right away. Some minutes later, the housemaid came with her pastor and some prayer warriors. When they got to the house, Ngozi led them into Nneka's room. However, when they opened the door to her room, Nneka was on her bed, sleeping peacefully. But Ngozi knew better now. She told the pastor and the prayer warriors to start what they came for. The pastor opened his Bible and started singing a powerful worship song. Nneka remained on the bed, sleeping peacefully at first. But after some minutes, she started shaking gradually like a snake, and suddenly she stood up and climbed on the ceiling, screaming like a witch. Her body transformed into that of a wild animal and she started attacking the pastor and the prayer warriors. She used her tail to tangle the neck of her mother and lifted her up high onto the ceiling. Ngozi was unable to breathe and she started gasping for air. The pastor intensified his prayers and Nneka released her mother's neck. She fell down from the ceiling to the floor and started shrieking like a demon. After screaming for a while, she started vomiting some dark substance which looked like a chocolate. When she had finished vomiting, a spirit left her body and escaped through the window. Then Nneka started crying bitterly and apologizing to her mother for trying to kill her. "I'm sorry, mommy. Please forgive me. I was not in control of myself. I tried to tell you and daddy when it all started, but none of you had my time. I couldn't tell you anymore because I was warned that I would be killed if I revealed it to anybody." Nneka hugged her daughter and also apologized to her for not creating time to listen to her. They both thanked the housemaid and the pastor for coming to their rescue, and Nneka decided that she would stop begging people for things and be contented with whatever she is given. When Nneka got to school the next day, she told Chioma, her friend, all that happened to her. She regretted not listening to Chioma's advice. Chisom came to school the next day as well. She approached Chioma and Nneka and went on her knees. She pleaded for their forgiveness and begged them to forgive her. "If I didn't do as my stepmother instructed me to do, she would beat me and starve me to death. Please forgive me because I had no choice. After the death of my parents, I was living at her mercy." The deliverance that was performed on Nneka greatly affected her stepmother, and Chisom's stepmother became paralyzed. Chioma and Nneka forgave Chisom and took her to meet their youth pastor in church. They prayed for her and she also turned a new leaf. The moral lesson of this story reminds us to be always content with what we have. No matter how great in need you might be, don't let greed push you into being a beggar. No matter how busy you may be, ensure to pay attention to your children whenever they need to talk to you. Your children should never lack your attention, no matter how occupied you may be in life. Be prayerful and vigilant in all you do. There is evil around you, and a minute or two of your time to pray every day is enough to shield you from these spiritual dangers. When someone says something, it can be doubted, but when the same thing is repeated by many people, it is wise to look into it with caution and see if there is truly something there to it. It is said that in every lie, there is an atom of truth. So instead of dismissing the word of someone just because you don't deeply trust them, it is best to reflect on their words. Then analyze each scenario in comparison with every possible occurrence before you can arrive at a conclusion.